What made you ghost a friend? I told her not to tell anyone, so she told everyone. I've grown to learn that no secret is safe if it's shared with anyone, even to someone you deem trustworthy. I don't tell any big secret to anyone. They will follow me to my grave. That realization that you're the one initiating all the interactions with them, and when you stop, they don't notice. Dude, that happened to me. It was an insanely painful realization that I still struggle with. I hope you're doing well and have friends that appreciate you. Every conversation was about them and their lives. They rarely asked or were interested in what I had going on. The selfishness was just too much after a while. I invited an old friend for lunch a couple months back and this is exactly how it went. We've more or less gone our own paths, so we have different friends and schedules etc. But at one point we were best friends. Amongst other stuff, this just solidified my decision to let things die off naturally. She didn't ask a single question about me when there's plenty to go off of, but I listened to a lot about her. She was really interested when it came to my jobs and how much I was making. When I realized the relationship was one-sided and they only cared about themselves. Yeah, I had a relationship that was really great for a while, but over time I realized they just didn't care much for me anymore. It was always them needing something. When I realized a lot of the things that made her laugh were at my expense. She thrived off of humiliating me. I was bullied in school, but my worst bully was my best friend. I used to come home and cry to my mom. I would be heartbroken over how my best friend was treating me. Honestly, I don't remember what my mom would tell me, but I wish she would have told me that I was worth way more than the treatment than I received from her, that she was a bad friend and I should drop her, that I had friends who treated me with respect, and that I should spend my time with them, that she would have forbade me from hanging out with her, anything. I wasted something like 15 years with that girl in that abusive friendship. Her fiance was arrested and did jail time for possession of child pornography. When he got out, she married him and talked about how excited she was to have children with him. Edit. I understand that people are concerned about any children that are born to these people. I'm concerned too. That said, I cut off contact with her 6 years ago. I can't FB stalk her due to her privacy settings. I also moved a few time zones away, so I'm not in the same social circle as her anymore either. All I can do is hope that the people who are still in her orbit do their due diligence. It sucks, but that's the option available to me. Did she just pretend that it didn't happen? Like what? When I realized she was maybe my best friend, but I was not her. In fact, I was only useful to her. That realization hits like a sledgehammer if you encounter some event or outing where you expected an invite and the friend just acted like you didn't exist. Every time when there is a girl involved, this dude turns into the cringiest being there is. Treading so much to get laid. In a group chat, when two girls were talking about what to wear for their girls' night out, he started bringing up panties, bras and whatnot. I left that group, started a new one with everyone from the old group except him. Had a friend like this who always became a different person as soon as other ladies were around. We knew each since before our sexual awakening, so he viewed me more in a sisterly light. So he said he'd always want to not be within 5 feet of me if other girls were around. He didn't want them to get the wrong idea until he decided he did actually like me enough to try and date me days after a breakup. I let him down gently, so I thought, but then he started screaming at me and calling me a whore because he knew I'd slept with my ex, but he was always there for me and I just wanted to find another jerk to sleep with. I'd dated my ex for just under a year at that point, my longest relationship to date as a petty and shallow teen. Guy went full incel on me and stopped speaking to me and starting spreading awful slut rumors about me in school, which I was already frequently accused of already, just because I dressed really punk and liked wearing plaid skirts, fishnet sleeves, and collars. As far as I know, nobody from our old friend circle talks to him anymore. Last I heard he was still very hateful, and when asked if he'd talked to me recently he went on a tirade. Started talking chiz about me to my GF and best mate. His dad had a history of drinking problems, and he was starting to exhibit the same behavior. So I suggested we should both take a break from drinking for a while and try to focus on some healthier chews. He apparently took that as I'm not the same person and my GF was the person who changed me. Sounds like somebody didn't want to be held responsible for his own actions, and it cost him his friend. Guy told me you'll never be a good teacher. After 2 years of unemployment following my graduation with a teaching degree, I realized the dastard had meant every joking insult he'd ever said to me. This is why insult humor is hard for me now. He knocked on my door one night and said let's go for a drive. This wasn't that odd, since I love driving to cool my head. So we start driving, and maybe 10 minutes in, he starts directing me on where to go. He asks me if I mind making a quick stop. I'm annoyed but say sure. We end up at this sketchy house in the middle of nowhere, and my buddy goes inside, but tells me to wait in the car. Almost 45 minutes later he comes back out and says we got to go to the bar. It takes me about 10 seconds to realize this pose went in there to get coke and was already high. So I tell him that I'm not feeling it tonight and drop him off at his place. Spoke to him once after that when he wanted to hang, and I told him I'm nobody's errand boy. Never gave a chiz if he got the message, because I haven't spoken to him since. I'm surprised you actually waited for so long outside. Only get ghosted. Finger guns. Edit. Rip my inbox, so many relatable people. Actually same. Exactly why I made this post lol. Too much insult humor. Really ducked my esteem edit, since I can't possibly respond to all these and keep my sanity. We were friends for a while, and it was almost always insult humor, and that combined with a chiz storm of other things just got to me, and I took it personally and ended up blowing up at them. Now I really don't have any way to talk to them and don't care anymore. I had a friend who could only do insult humor. It really wears on you after a while, and they usually can't take criticism about it either. It was only a joke, and such excuses. My best friend growing up was a kid I lived next door to from the age of 9 until 18. At school, he would pretend not to know me so he could seem cool to the popular kids. He would invite me places and ditch me. He would break plans so he could free up time to hang with his cooler friends. That chiz got real old, real fast. When I was 18 I moved to the other side of town. We were growing apart more and more, but I would still try to hang out with him when I could. Well, one day he asked me to come over to his house and play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater when it first came out. I was so pumped that I walked 3 miles to his house only to be told that he was going to go hang out at his other friend's house instead. But could I babysit his brothers and sisters? Needless to say, things weren't the same after that. I stopped answering his calls. He would stop by, and I would leave just to avoid him. He would make plans to hang out, and I never bothered going. I just gave up on trying to be friends with that guy. I tried so hard for almost 10 years, just to be a good friend to him, and he just pushed me to the wayside. Maybe I'm an a-hole for stooping to his level, but I don't care anymore. Sounds very much like a chameleon. They're the worst, because they can fit with anyone, but only one at a time. That's where they screw themselves. 10 years of that would take a toll on anyone. He failed to care for my dogs when dog sitting. Pick of them. Solemn. I was getting super close to an old friend from college, his new wife and their kids. We were going out of town for like a week and asked them to dog sit. It was the worst case scenario. They neglected my ducking dogs. There was at least 2 days where they didn't get let out of fed and left my younger dog in his kennel for like 24 hours. When I asked why there was piss and chiz in his cage, their response was, if I had known it was there I would have cleaned it up. Like, you're missing the point, man. I'm not mad I had to clean it up. I'm mad that you neglected my dogs. He never went potty in the house, let alone his kennel. I was livid, and if that wasn't enough, the house was a wreck. They took like $40 out of our change jar, let her kid lose all the pieces to my vacuum, let her kid play with a pound container of garlic salt and spill it everywhere. Don't worry, she swept it underneath the couch. They used up all our tea and coffee and put a whole pot of macaroni down the garbage disposal, giving us plumbing problems to this day. For months it was like finding little chiz tea cherries on top, as I discovered yet another chiz tea thing they did. Edit. This got a lot more attention than I was expecting. I dropped them immediately and we never spoke again. They didn't really show signs of being chisty before this happened and had their own cat that they took very good care of. When I came home to find the power off, bill hadn't been paid. We were friends from work. He had split up from his ex and I needed to be closer to work. We went 50-50 on a rental. He has 3 kids from the previous relationship. With me being the nerd, I agreed to pay the tech bills, internet, phone, cable TV. He agreed to pay the power as he burned more because his kids were over on access visits. Came home. Dark house. Investigate. He hadn't paid the power for ages because his new girlfriend wanted the money. Then I discovered he wasn't paying his rent either. Same reason. Down $5k. Power, rent. We were evicted. Ghosted. Deleted. Depression. Keeping up communication is rough sometimes. A day of not replying to a message can become a week when you don't know how to explain that you just couldn't be around people that day, which can become a month when it always seems impossible to reach out and explain where you've been. Thankfully my friends are the understanding sort and don't give me too hard a time, but I still feel like an a-hole. Hey, if they understand, I don't believe that you're an a-hole, and I doubt they think you are either. As adults sometimes it's just chiz happens. When I was in college, I, M, and a friend, M, went out drinking with a mutual friend, F. We drank enough to decide to all crash at my apartment, which was within walking distance of the bar. My female friend passed out on the sofa. As soon as we got there, I shot the chiz with my friend for about 10 minutes before he starting talking about my passed out girl, looking at her and saying things like I could duck her right now and she'd never know. I'm ashamed that I didn't kick him out. What I did was stay up all night sitting in a chair next to her just to make sure he didn't rape her. Duck that guy. Needless to say, I ghosted him after that night. Edit. Thanks for the awards, guys. To those saying maybe he was just mouthing off, no. The things he was saying were just way over the line. Freaked me out. I kept trying to get him to go sleep it off in my bedroom, but he kept saying nah, I'll just crash in this chair next to her. Probably for the best that you handled it the way you did. A chisty friend like that would have for sure spread rumors of you having raped her if you had kicked him out that night. Deleted. Oh my god, I was friends with someone like this, except it was jobs and boyfriends, both changing roughly every 3 to 4 months. It was always someone else's fault for whatever problem, and it was always the same problems. It's exhausting, and so I had to cut ties. My depression-induced social isolation. Relatable. I go in cycles where I do not really care to hang with anyone outside of my direct family. It is not that they have done anything wrong, I just want to be alone. It is hard concept for people to understand and has hurt relationships. She burned the bridge. For most of the year and a half that she and I started working at the same place, she bullied me, micromanaged me, made me feel left out, and gaslighted me whenever I tried to confront her behavior. It was almost always my fault. Nothing I ever did was right, and she refused to believe that she has control issues or that she was using me as a punching bag. She started doing this thing where she wouldn't text me unless I texted her first and then get mad if I didn't text her. So, once she quit the job, I stopped texting her. I haven't spoken to her at all since August 2019, and I don't regret it. Rather narcissistic behavior. I'm not diagnosing or anything, but yeah, no, I wouldn't want to be around anyone like that. Deleted. That's so weird to single you out like that over an opinion. I'm shy, so chiz like that makes me not want to talk at all. Glad you removed yourself from that nonsense. When I realized she liked hating things more than liking them. I hate beer, hate EDM, hate Marvel, hate Channing Tatum, hate football. These are all things she said. It's okay that we don't enjoy the same things, but she'd go out of her way to let me know she hated something and rarely talked about what she liked. That sounds unbearably negative to be around. This happened with multiple people. They tried to tell me I was too sad and depressing not even a month after watching my dad die, and that I should just pretend it didn't happen when I'm around them. I called them out for the trash they are and said if they ever show their face around me again I'd fight them. Not much if a fighter, but that's nonsense for them to expect you to act cool. I lost my dad way back and it still makes me cry. Duck that. You deserve all the time in the world to grieve if you need to. Anybody else read this as what made you a ghost friend? My bad triggered discipline. Slept with other friends GF out of spite. SMH. That's outrageous. I have a friend who I probably should have stopped talking to long before I did, but his escapades include / slept with my ex of 3 years a week or so after we broke up / got really handsy with my sister against her will at my 21st / just being a general creep to girls for a long time edit. To clarify, I do not talk to this person anymore and these were the events that definitely turned the tide almost immediately. There were other, less serious things prior. Solidarity. Haven't talked to my best friend after he slept with my fiancée of 3 years. The rest of my exes, I wouldn't have cared. But she was the person I was gonna marry and the breakup was super messy. Day before we were gonna fly out for a week to a resort for my birthday, tickets and room paid for, and she says she doesn't feel the same way anymore and leaves. Got over her, but she'll always be the one that got away for me. Then to hear from her that she slept with him a few years later? Rough. You're not alone, man. Sorry that happened to you too. Shouldn't ever happen to anyone. Hope you're better off now, mate. She started hanging out with a new friend. That's fine. I'm not her only friend. Then while we were hanging out, as pre-planned she would leave to go hang out with her new friend. Then she'd break plans with me to hang out with her, all while tagging her on Facebook so none of it was being hidden. 3 years later she reaches out to me and apologizes. It's genuine as she mentioned insightful things she would have no way of knowing unless she had grown and been very honest with herself. We are friends for another 2 years when she starts to hang out with another new friend. Repeat. Same thing happened, but with my best friend, and whenever she got a new boyfriend. The disappointment hurts less the second time, but it still sucks knowing that they really didn't change. Getting ditched every time there's a new guy on the scene, but being expected to be there the second it all breaks down. Ducking been there. I loved this girl. She was so clutch for me when my life was in ruins. The issue was that she and I were both addicts at the same time and both came from the same types of affluent families, but for whatever reason, I got clean and I turned my life around while she got worse. She and I were both addicts with eating disorders, alcoholism, and both addicted to Xanax. I got clean and only recently, 7 years later, have started experimenting with maybe 1 or 2 beers per month if I'm out with my husband. She ended up with this awful guy who she will not give up, who got her hooked on meth. I was there for her for a long time. After rehab and a few arrests, she stayed at my house for a bit on 2 different occasions. But the last time she did, she tore my house apart looking for alcohol, which we didn't have, stole my ID so she could get Postmates to deliver vodka to my house, and nearly got us both killed by grabbing and yanking my steering wheel while I was going 80 miles per hour up I-95. I've tried so many times to help her get and stay clean, but she keeps going back to that guy and her triggers are my triggers. I had to distance myself because she was making me relapse. But you also know she won't accept help from anyone until she's ready. I know it hurts and it hurts to watch. I've gone through it myself with a friend. Unfortunately it's out of our control. On the other hand, go you gaining control of your own life, and I hope you're around people that are better for you. The fact she wasn't putting effort in our friendship and just texted if she needed something, and she always made me feel like I'm not welcome and wanted. So, nope, thanks. Whenever I would talk about feeling stressed and my mental health not being in an optimal condition, she would say something along the lines of, "Oh come on, you don't have actual problems. There are people out there that actually have depression, anxiety, etc." She always downplayed the struggles I would be going through, just because it wasn't the worst possible thing that could happen. Edit. I never thought this would receive so much support. Thank you everyone for your kind words. This means a lot. I hate her, it could be worse person. If it bothers you, hurts you, it's valid and important. I hope you found a better friend. Massive amounts of negative energy. Nobody likes an energy vampire. Absolutely draining. Anyone else on this post looking for the reason someone may have ghosted them? Yes, it's been a few years but it haunts me to this day. They were like a family member to me. I just want to know what drove them away. I'd give anything to have that friendship back. Too much drama. Told a sob story in order to garner sympathy points. Story didn't check out and no one believed her, so she got even more angry about it. Decided to book it because her stories and blame games were getting too much for me. We had been friends for years. Like long-term sisterhood kind of chiz. I did so much for her over the years and didn't even bat an eyelash. I asked her to watch my cat while I went on a 10-day vacation. A cat that she also loved because it belonged to her family before me. She agreed to watch the cat. I even called her about 4 days into my vacation to ask her again to go and check on my cat to make sure it had food/water and a few scritches. When I came home my cat's water and food bowl were bone dry and she let out the most tormenting meows I have ever heard. My friend didn't check on her once in the 10 days that I was gone. She played stupid when I confronted her about it and said oh, I completely forgot. That was the beginning of the end. Edit. As for ghosting her, I had to. After the cat incident, she tried to make me feel guilty for being mad at her for it. I think I even ended up apologizing because she was so beside herself. A few more disagreements occurred after that, and I was always put on a guilt trip. I decided that I didn't need that negativity in my life anymore, and I ghosted her. To this day she tries to get back to me. Even through mutual friends, she badmouths me, then tells them how much she misses me. Chick is whack. WTF. I'm not the greatest friend, but I would say no if I'm not sure I can check on the cat every day. She cheated on my best friend when they were dating. The three of us had known each other since high school and they started dating in college. She got into grad school in another state and I moved in with him since he needed a roommate. About 2 months into the long distance she cheats on him and I just stopped talking to her after that because she hurt him so much. Go you being the good friend. I wouldn't want to be involved or have my friend involved with someone so careless. He ducking molested me while a group of us guys shared a hotel room together. Ghost him. World turned him into one. I'm so sorry that happened to you. He became obsessed with me telling me he loved me and things in front of my friends, basically acting as if I was his girlfriend. Became super angry and jealous whenever I talked to my other friends. Guys told me that when I visited him, he was in the US and in Canada. I would have to sleep in his bed. After I made it very clear we were not nor ever will be a thing. He then started reaching out to my friends to get them to convince me to talk to him again. They told him to shove it after they found out why I ghosted him. It's been a few months now. I haven't regretted the decision. That's one of the biggest red flags I've heard. And creepy as hell to continue to try to contact you through your friends. An ex-friend of mine was gay and developed a huge crush on me but couldn't take a hint no matter what I tried. When I told it to their face that I wasn't gay so I couldn't be interested in them, they took it badly and replied with I only think you're gay because everyone else does, which made me paranoid about what other people thought of me because even though there's nothing wrong with being gay, there's nothing more awkward than people thinking you're gay when you're not. I was still prepared to forgive him until he set me up for failure with my crush at the time as some kind of twisted revenge antic. Revenge just ain't it. If we have control over anything it's how we feel, and you just weren't feeling it, not to mention the fact that you're not gay. It's unfortunate he wasn't able to move on maturely. She flirted with me and didn't stop. I have a GF, and I didn't need that drama. No really means no. He berated me for believing the earth was spherical. He will come around. You jerk. She had a negative experiences with a lot of things to the point that talking to her was like walking on eggshells. I hope she's doing alright, and I feel bad I stopped talking to her, but I had to choose what was better for me. I was that friend about 5 years ago. I was a total piece of shiz, and being ignored by my only ever friends was the hardest thing I ever went through. I'm surprised I'm still alive to see the end of it, but they did the right thing to do that. I was constantly bringing them down and just generally being a piece of chiz. It still affects me to this day. I'm constantly paranoid while talking to pretty much anyone that I'm being a rig. I used to do it without knowing I was doing it, so if I didn't know then, how could I now? But ultimately it's the right decision. It made me get myself together and try to make a conscious effort to improve. I don't think I'll ever be fully comfortable in conversation again, but if it's better for other people, then it's worth it. When they talk, I walk behind. I hated always awkwardly walking on the fringes. Meant I was either in the street, straddling the curb, or jumping over bushes and shiz trying to keep up. When you realize that they're never really there for you, and your friendship only breeds part of aggressiveness and envy. This jealousy and envy creates an environment where it's hard to trust or enjoy friendship with someone. Got uninvited to be the best man and to the wedding after traveling to a destination wedding. Friend has tried to apologize multiple times and I just don't respond. Edit. For those that just have to know, we stayed in different hotels at the destination. He called me to set a dinner date and they no-showed. I figured they were tired from travel, but they posted on Facebook. Wife saw the next morning, I'm not on FB, where they were out partying it up with her best friend. When I called him about it, I was told I was being pussy. Told him that all the times I had been there for him, including being the only person, including family, to go see him after his first wife died. He lived several states away. Lent him $sign when he was unemployed. I thought we should be treated better than that, and that they were pretty rude not to even call and let us know they weren't coming. Was told to grow the duck up. I laughed, said whatever dude, and just hung up. Wife and I spent the day being tourists, etc. He called that night after we were asleep. We had some pretty bad jet lag and left multiple messages wanting us to meet them out. Left like 10 messages. The longer the night, the more the drunk message. He was crying in the latter stages. Wife and I got up really early the next day to go scuba diving. Figured I would call him when we were done and back ashore. By the time we got off the boat, got a text saying we were uninvited. I have never communicated with him since and never will again. Why? It was when I lost a job I had a couple of years ago and she didn't say she was sorry to hear that or ask if I was okay or anything. She ghosted me for a week and then when I heard from her, she said now that I have this wonderful life, I guess you don't need me. I hardly had a wonderful life. I had lost my job and health insurance and didn't know what I was going to do, but she assumed things were great because I had marked on Facebook that I was going to some activities which had been planned before the job loss. I realized this was not a friend and how incredibly selfish she was. Holy hell. I understand insecurities, but she ghosted Jul Mayo like I'm confused. I hope things have gotten better since then with everything, and I hope you do have a wonderful life. We were good friends in high school and he started getting into drugs. At first it was just weed and alcohol, but then he started hanging out with people that I wasn't quite comfortable with, so I transitioned to a new set of friends, and so did he. Fast forward a year or so, and we bump into each other at a college party and he's telling me these stories of being ripped on coke and pills and etc, and I realized that he was putting his life into drugs. A few years later he's arrested for armed robbery for cash and pills, and then when he got out of jail he odd and now he's gone. Maybe I could have helped, but now I'll never know. Most people with addiction unfortunately don't want help, at least in my experience. It's extremely sad, but they have to decide when they've had enough. I wish they could've done that and I'm sorry. Who knows what could've happened. I'm just glad you didn't follow down that road. We were hanging out having a great time and he said, I always forget how fun you are. Suddenly it occurred to me and I said, it's like you forget I exist, unless I'm right in front of you. He laughed and agreed, thinking I was joking or something, but it was very real. Unfortunately I stuck around for a few more months, but this was definitely the tipping point. Otherwise for most of my friends, it's just the same as what other people have said. I shouldn't have to do the relationship maintenance all by myself 100% of the time. Deleted. That story was a fucking ride. She sounds like she has a lot of work to do on herself. Everyone needs support, but when you get stingy and nasty that's a no-go. Her 2-year-old was violent towards my 2-year-old. She thought it was normal and refused to correct his behavior. I was really good friends with this girl in 5th grade, or so I thought. When we first met we got along really well, but I started noticing after 2 years that she would go hang out with me when I was with my guy friends, pretend that she was there to hang out with me, push me to the side, and flirt with my guy friends. Now, obviously I could tell that her actions made my guy friends uncomfortable. So I confronted her about it, and she just said in front of my guy friends, "I don't know you, why are you here?" After that, I stopped inviting her to hang out, and she pleaded for forgiveness, but I just ignored her. That sounds extremely toxic. I'm glad you let that one go. When my best friend got her now husband, a guy I had known and chilled with through mutual friends, a decent guy I think, she became incredibly toxic. Would put me down constantly for small things I did in the past, poor makeup skills, getting too drunk, people I dated etc. Her partner blamed me for her promiscuity. I knew it wasn't healthy, but he became her fiance and the wedding wasn't gonna be too far down the road, so I wanted to be there to support her, since we were friends for so long. First, she scheduled it on her/our Thanksgiving. I study in America and she knew this wasn't a holiday off school for me, therefore attending would be difficult, and we had talked about mutually convenient dates, her idea, not mine, so that I could attend everything. I also TBH thought this date was kind of selfish more generally speaking, to pick for a wedding, but I wasn't going to tell her that, because I didn't feel I should have to point it out, and I know this is selfish, but it's an important holiday to me also, and I prefer to spend it doing the traditions myself, and my spouse have started, so even if I was off school, I would probably wanted to stay in America with him rather than fly home. She also continually made comments about my financial situation in my relationship, about my partner, and how he doesn't care about my well-being etc. but hers does, and how he should be paying for me to live and go to school etc. Absolutely crazy chiz. I just couldn't do it anymore. Realized seeing her texts pop up made me feel the same way you imagine/feel in an abusive romantic relationship, and I just couldn't be present in the relationship anymore. I didn't technically ghost her. I just said I can't commit to the events anymore, and I was sorry. It was all too much to balance with school, but I wish them the best. I feel we're just growing in different directions. Naturally, she didn't take well to it. Who would? We didn't talk after that day. IDK. I thought I was justified, but I still feel pretty guilty most the time. I did bail on my best friend's wedding. After all, I know why you feel guilty, but in my eyes you're in the clear. Chiz, you didn't even ghost her, you told her things just weren't working. But no one should be talking to you that way, especially someone who is supposed to be your friend. They bring you up, not down. They want to see you succeed regardless of what they are struggling with. I hope you have friends like that now. Multi-level marketing. She was pretty aggressive with selling Monad to me and a couple other friends we shared, so much so that she started posting passive-aggressive messages about finding out who your true friends are when they don't support you blah blah blah. I was trying to be nice and purchased 2 bottles to support her just once, and when she charged me, she had tacked on a bunch of fees that she didn't mention before. $100 spent to learn that real friends don't strong arm you to buy and upcharge you their crap products. Didn't listen to facts. Wouldn't help young son who obviously needed help. I just couldn't watch anymore. I was disinvited from his wedding, in which I was a groomsman, because he found out I wasn't a Christian. We'd been friends for a decade up until that point. My best friend of 8 years told me I couldn't be in her wedding because I was an atheist and my being there would damn their marriage to hell. We stopped being friends that day. The kicker? The reason she got upset about my lack of religion is because I had recently been in a mutual friend's wedding, and apparently I didn't close my eyes during the prayer. If she saw that my eyes weren't closed, her eyes weren't closed either. Hypocrite. I was the person who got ghosted from my best friend. I literally have no idea why it happened. We lived together, and she didn't even wish me a happy birthday despite being friends since 9th grade. We graduated college and she hasn't spoken to me since. Exactly why I wrote this post. I've been ghosted by 2 close friends with no answers. It's hard when you want clarity on why. I'm sorry you're left with no answers. I know how much it hurts. I'm B, and when I told them they said gross. Ugh. I'm so sorry. I had a weirdly opposite one. Told her that I was B and that my fiance was good with it. When I told him, she began to obsessively and blatantly hit on him whenever we were together. Finally stopped talking to her after her birthday when she told him that all she wanted as a gift was a 3-way with us. It's like, dude, stop trying to use my sexuality as a gateway to bang my fiance. She was controlling and judgmental. A couple of months after my grandfather died, he raised me. She was hounding me to go out to the club because I needed to get over it. Slowly faded myself out after that. She didn't handle it well though. Showed up at my house asking my grandmother where I was. Left a note on my car. Nope. I may not have the context of the story, but from what you are saying, that sounds reasonable. A few months is quite a while, and even though grieving is always a long process, she may have wanted you to have a change of pace. Then, later she checked on you when you weren't around. That sounds like she was just concerned. Leaving a note on your car seemed to be the only reasonable way to contact you, warming you were ignoring her texts and phone calls. Like I said, I don't know the full story, but she doesn't sound like a toxic or negative friend. I quit drinking. The quickest way to lose and make great friends is to do something to fix your mental health. I found out a lot about my friends when I stopped drinking, and before that, when I left school for a mental breakdown. People just don't even pretend to make the effort anymore. Their political Facebook posts that always ended with, "If you don't agree with this, then you can just unfriend me. Deuces." His wife, she scared quite a few of his friends away. Made it so obvious she did not want his friends around. Anytime the attention wasn't on her, it was a problem for everyone. Classic narcissist behavior. Cut off all your victim's social connections and support. He probably needs it more than ever now, tbh. A friend confessed that he liked me, I'm a straight male, and told the girl I liked that I liked him back, which made my chances of being with her slimmer than it was before. When he started slandering my name because I started dating the girl he liked, even though he moved away 6 months ago and she said she didn't like him. I'm a lazy introvert who doesn't really feel a need to maintain close friendships. I hate to say it, but I've ghosted a couple of friends. It was after years of friendship and I realized that everything was about them. The friendship was one-sided, and I felt undervalued. It got to the point that, even though we were best friends, they had no idea what was happening in my life. A lot more happened that I don't care explaining, but I stopped talking to them after 11 years. She pocket called me. Overheard her talking chiz about my personal issues that I had confided in her. This reminds me of a time in middle school. I started dating this girl 8th grade who I had a crush on for a long time, and Jay finally got the courage to ask her out, and she said yes. Later that day she butt dialed me, and I listened for like 20 minutes while she made fun of me to her friend about how annoying I was and how he'll probably want to hold her hand and how it'll be funny to see my reaction when she breaks up with me. Looking back, it's kinda funny how middle school minds work, but it was devastating at the time. My closest mate for over 15 years. He had no initiative, slept all the time, never initiated anything. Never lived out of home, and slept in his own filth, grew obese, hoarded crappy Japanese toys which filled up his dad's house, and became more and more annoying as a person, until I couldn't bear him. Constant one-upmanship or little put-downs, or bragging over embarrassing stuff. I moved cities. When he came to visit, he annoyed and offended my friends so much they never forgot. I cut all contact. I always ask for news, but he has alienated all his old friends. The only news is that he is somehow even fatter, now has diabetes, has taken up cigars and dresses up in a cowboy hat and boots he ordered from Nashville, USA. The neckbeard has come full circle to become a cowboy. A morbidly obese cowboy who could never actually mount a horse, let alone ride one. A girl I met in one of my biology labs came off really nice. I didn't really know anyone in the small lab and she invited me to be study partners, which I gladly accepted. The first study session was at a coffee shop off campus. She complained about her best friend for 3 hours. She was the most negative, entitled person I've ever met. After that semester, I deleted her number and never talked to her again. The one and only person I ever ghosted was my ex. The relationship overall was not great, but the straw that broke the camel's back was a big one. The long story short of the breakup was my childhood cat died, 20 years old, 19 of them in my life. He was unsympathetic and even downright chisty about it. A mere week after my cat died, he started complaining at me that I wasn't invested in the relationship and never wanted to spend time with him anymore. Mind you, I told him upfront that I would need space to deal with my cat's death. He still hailed me multiple times a day despite my making this known. I told him I was breaking up with him because I needed to deal with my mental health, because I honestly wouldn't have been able to remain civil telling him the real reason, his chisty attitude about my cat's death. After the breakup I, very stupidly, agreed to remain friends. The daily hailings continued. He would constantly message me about playing games with him. I replied occasionally at first, but after a while I just didn't have the energy anymore. He still didn't take the hint, and I continued to be bombarded by pointless BS messages. Then, on February 14th, Valentine's Day, he messaged me asking how my mental health was, and it honestly just pissed me off to a level I didn't know was possible. I immediately unfriended and blocked him on everything because I was just beyond done. I generally dislike ghosting people, but I honestly couldn't even bring myself to message him. Why I was unadding him, because I would have gone absolutely nuclear on him. It still pisses me off thinking about it. The YouTube video was too good to pause. Finding out they're homophobic. He became a conspiracy theorist and a COVID-19 denier. Also some right-wing xenophobic tendencies. I just don't have the energy to argue with someone on this level. It became exhausting, and I realized it was making me anxious. Not gently ghosted, but cut off completely. I've defriended someone on FB for the stupid conspiracy theories that they were posting. Man, I'm low-key worried my ex-best friend posted here. Alex, I'm sorry for whatever I did. You're not alone in that, man. I'm looking here for an explanation despite knowing what the reason is. I just want to hear him say it. She is and still is a cheater. Good enough reason for me. He's still into edgelord humor and opinions. It was fine when I was a ducked up kid, but in 10 years a lot has changed. The moment I realized that attitude is toxic is the same moment I became a happier person. I don't think I've straight up ghosted anyone ever. I usually make them understand that I will no longer be part of their life, and I'll explain why that is. I've ghosted people trying to DM me randomly on FB though. Deleted. When I realized I was only their friend because they had no other friends who would put up with their bullshit. Addicted to blow, afflicted because they were gay. Nobody had any problem with this and constantly said they were going to kill themselves. I was patient for longer than anyone else and even said how I was feeling. They would get coked out and text me about 20 times throughout the night, almost every night. I blocked them 3 days later. He married an owned epidapotamus who then conceived his child. I was going through a tough time during my divorce and he asked me to move 14 hours away to live with him and his family. I saw the daily interworkings of their lives and relationships and saw her physically and emotionally attack him. She often threatened to say he was abusive and she was going to take their son away from him. I told him he needed to get out of the relationship before she hurt the kids or him beyond repair. He wouldn't do it, so I packed up one night and drove 14 hours home. Haven't talked to him since. I'm so sorry, but I can't help from laughing. Dependapotamus go you for getting out of there. Sounds like your dude should've done the same. I ghosted my entire friend group of 5+ people. Some of these friends I've had since kindergarten. I wasn't enjoying hanging out with them anymore. I don't know what changed, but it just wasn't the same. I wasn't having fun, and I found myself not wanting to go anymore. I regret it some days. It could be because they were such lifelong friends or the fact that I don't have the skills to make new friends. Kinda sucks. This guy dated a couple girls I knew, and through separate conversations with them, I learned he consistently treated them like dirt, while complaining to everyone who would listen what bitches they were. It only confirmed my suspicions. If the sole common factor in all of your failed relationships is you are the problem. A while back, I asked my mom why she had stopped hanging out with one of her good friends. Like, feed do coffee dates. My mom would sometimes play bass in her band. Their drummer was another family friend. Her reply, I realized that every time we hung out, she was complaining about her other friends to me. It made me wonder what she was saying to them about me. Love that. It's great reading in between the lines advice. She got pregnant by her aunt's husband, effectively ending the relationship with her mother's side of the family. The dude of course dumped her before the baby was born, and now less than 2 years later she's pregnant again by a dude that is pretty much proven to be into coerced reproduction, as in has gotten multiple women pregnant against their will in order to control and abuse them, has single because he almost killed his last GF, and she has a restraining order against him. The guy's 35 and she is 23. She's been coming to me to complain that no one supports her and understands her. How could her mother ditch her after she ducked her sister's husband? It was an accident, and she only did it because she was horny and bored. How could her friends not support a relationship with a man who has been charged with attempted murder? Can I come watch her kid while she travels out of state to see her murder a new fling? And she is definitely not aborting because she knows there'll be a family. I couldn't deal with it anymore, so I blocked her. Absolutely sounds like something she unfortunately did to herself. No one's gonna see this 10k comments in, but I saw my friend's prayer list next to her bed. Pray Tesla sees the truth. I had a girlfriend. She had a religion that told her I needed to be saved. Yeah, nope. She just stood between everyone. It was just a game to her to ruin friendships, people that she wasn't even close friends with. Nearly 10 years later, and I'm told she still tries it on with a wider circle, or rather, her husband's circles, as she no longer has any friends of her own anymore, but they all treat it like a joke and ignore her, going so far as to warn others in a jokey manner. Lol, she's become that girl. I ghosted a friend for ghosting one of our friends just cause he thinks he's annoying. The friend he ghosted just tries his best to be friends with everyone and believes that you can get close to as many people as you want to. He literally says that if a friend needs help, even if they view him as just an acquaintance, that he'll be there for them as much as he possibly can. He really never gives up on people. He also once said to me that he does find people annoying or weird and also get jealous of people who seem to have it all together. But that's what makes people so interesting and fascinating to him, cause he sees every single person as a unique character in this story called life. I just love the guy and really praise him for being like that in such an indifferent society, and that's why I renounce the guy who ghosted him. She turned all my friends against me and is basically the hugest reason I'm still dealing with the fact that I still have problems associating with people because I'm afraid of being betrayed or abandoned. When I got judged for having a medically necessary abortion, I was apparently supposed to run the risk of uterine rupture and possibly kill myself and a baby. They were emotionally draining. It's tough to talk to a person that has the same problems over and over again for years. It wasn't even that bad of a problem, but it was emotionally draining for me. And having my daughter made me realize I don't need people draining me. I need to be with people that make me feel I had a great time, a great convo, etc. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.